The Ollo Audio S4X is a neutral dynamic driver headphone. I recently reviewed that headphone and concluded it is good value. I explained that if you already have the original S4, then you should not feel compelled to rush out and buy the new S4X. Regardless, it was evident to me that the S4X does provide meaningful changes from the original version. To better understand the S4X, I set up an interview with the co-founder of Ollo Audio, Rock Gulich. He and I spent about an hour talking today. He discussed the new headphone, company philosophy, and customer support. The interview was supposed to focus on the new headphone, but as you will hear, we touched on many different subjects. This interview should provide a clear glimpse into Ollo Audio and its products. What I find most appealing is Rock's determined honesty. Good or bad, he seems willing to provide the information most manufacturers would prefer to hide. This conversation reinforces the impression I got last year when I first interviewed Rock. That is, Rock and his company are a breath of fresh air among these stagnant audiophile companies. As you'll come to find, Ollo Audio does not have a bunker mentality. Consumers are not suckers to mislead with marketing. Feedback is not disregarded. Products are not the most amazing ever. Instead, Ollo demonstrates a desire to listen to their customers to see where products fell short. More than that, Ollo makes real changes based upon feedback. These guys are not afraid to admit how their work should be improved. I had a great time speaking with Rock. I hope that we can have more conversations in the future. And I hope you enjoy this interview. Yep, now it's recording.
Beautiful.
Okay, thank you so much, Rock, for setting this up. I know it's been a little bit troubling. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about your new headphone. So let's talk a little bit about where you got to from the S4 to the S4X. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure, of course.
So when I first tried out the S4 last year, I was very happy with the headphone. I thought that it had a lot of promise. So what made you want to upgrade or change the drivers to the S4X?
Well, first of all, we very much listen to our endorsers, customers. Well, basically, we listen to the market very much. And based on the feedback we got from the previous model, the S4, we just composed a list of things that should be fixed. And we just dived into it and tried to figure out how to fix them at keeping kind of reasonable costs, because there's in reality, or even now after a few years being in this business, I can see that you can achieve almost anything, but the cost of making the product just it skyrockets. So we have to be very careful in choosing materials and choosing suppliers and methodology that we use, or technology basically, to manufacture these beautiful headphones in order to keep them at reasonable price to manufacture, and of course at the end to keep it reasonable price on the market. So yeah, that's how we approached it. So we started with what we had. We listened to the market, gather the feedback, and then we just we researched all the options and put the S4X together.
What type of feedback did you get in order to change the headphone design?
Yeah, well, one thing was the resonating headband, which is it's a problem if you hit it, or I mean if you touch it with your hand, or if you have like I don't know, there's one of our endorsers, I'm sorry I forgot her name, that is using a recording booth, the portable recording booth, which is a little like a little space, a little small room that you can set anywhere you want. And in there, she has very little space to move around. So she accidentally touches the headband when she's moving in there. And the resonance is then, of course, bothering bothering her in the monitoring chain. So that was something that we've gathered with, like, I don't know, 6 of 10 probably would say that is something we need to fix. The other thing that was pretty dominant was the low mids boost. So the S4 were very strong and dominant in the low mids, and we had to reset that a little bit. And the first thing was just the comfort side of the ear pads when they were a little bit shallow. So we had to make them, basically deeper, so more room for the ears. And these were the three main things that we were trying to fix. But of course, we did a lot of smaller changes as well. The way the drivers are, mounted, the holes, the air resistance is completely different. In reality, the acoustics are really very, very much different, although the chassis, the enclosure, is at the same time very, very much the same. And that's giving us the option to offer our previous customers the upgrade to the S4X model for a very low price.
So now that you mention it, could you tell us, in your opinion, what you think are the differences sonically between the original, the S4, and the new one, the X?
Well, sonically, in my opinion, I mean, we can talk about the science part of things and how they measure, which is as much objective as it can get. And we can talk about how I feel about them or how I perceive them. In reality, I think the S4 were very much balanced, but they did had a problem with the low mid boost. And maybe they were a little shy in the mid range, about 1 to 2 kilohertz. The S4X, on the other hand, are fixed on that area, and they are still very, very, they're still very pleasant and clear in the low end. So the absolutes or the sub bass, if you wish, so I'm talking 20, 30, 40 hertz up to 60 is very much present, although we cut down the higher bass area about 100 to 250 to 300 hertz. That area was recessed quite heavily, and we managed to keep the bass still present there, which is something that many of other competitor headphones don't really do very well. They will tend to have a roll off at about 60 hertz or 50 hertz. We can extend pretty down further. I think to about 20 easily, even below that. So sonically, yeah, they are more flat, they are more balanced than the previous model. The sound stage is kind of the same, I think. That's basically all I can say about them. You have to keep in mind, I am the founder of the company. I made these headphones. I designed them together with my team. So it's hard to, be fully honest about these headphones. They sound great to me, as did the S4 beforehand. So, I mean, it's best probably to check reviewers. It's best to read about them, and the absolute best option would be to try them, which we still do offer. Right, so you do have 30 days trial as you did before with the S4. So I guess that's my answer. It's not much of an answer. I realize that, but I don't really feel confident in, explaining how they sound to me, because that doesn't really mean much.
Well, I appreciate your honesty about this. I know there are a lot of companies that boast that their headphones, their gear is the best anywhere around. But it sounds like what you're trying to say is there are differences from the new model versus the old model, and those differences should be noticeable if you do an A and B comparison. Would you
Oh
agree with
yeah,
that?
yeah, of course. I mean, they are without a doubt way more balanced than the S4 were, right? But of course, whenever we are trying to compare something, or this statement on its own, when I say they are more flat or more balanced or whatever, we need a reference point, right? So what more balanced comparing to what, right? So again, it's a big change. If we would start out measurements and the science behind it, there are big drops, right? We are talking like 4 to 5 dB recess in the low mids, for example, and that's huge comparing to the S4. But they're still war in comparison to, for example, I don't know, like the 600 series that are very, very popular and many people have them, right? So I guess this, how they sound, how they feel always comes down to comparisons and what you can compare to what your reference point is. And this reminds me of why we actually offer comparison charts on our webpage. Right? It's there. Not all the models are available because it just gets too expensive for us. But we do have a lot of popular models there, so you can kind of get a sense, a scientific way of comparing our headphones with other models. And again, there is the S4 as well. So if you have them right now, you put them on, you listen to music, you can kind of get a feel how the S4X will sound when you're comparing the two charts on our webpage.
So I know that your headphones are geared towards professionals, but do you think that the new S4X could also be used as a pleasure headphone, like for regular audiophiles, or are you aiming this headphone specifically for professionals?
Well, I mean, what is the difference between a professional audio engineer and audiophile? Right? There's not much difference, I think. I mean, both of these groups will appreciate quality always. Right? So the differences are maybe in the forgive me if this word is not an English word, but in utilization of the products of the these items. So how do you actually use them? For example, if the cables are a part of headphone that you cannot replace, that you cannot pull out, that is something that the pro audio community would very much. So it's something that has to be there without a doubt. The other part is serviceability. A heavy professional user will travel a lot with those headphones, and life will happen on the road. So having a premium product, kind of expensive in a way, it has to be serviceable for a professional user. But when it comes to just talking about sound and experiencing sound, I really don't see a difference. I mean, what do you think about this?
No, I tend to agree with you. The reason I'm asking is because there are some people who believe reference class or neutral or flat sounding headphones are, according to them, boring. And that may just be the sonic preference that those people have. They want some more bass, they want more treble, whatever. So I was wondering if you have an opinion whether your particular headphones, the S4X, should be viewed as a headphone only for professionals or as a headphone that anybody can use for whatever application that they have.
I mean, when you say everybody, the answer is obviously not. They're not designed for everybody. If you're a gamer, you might, want to look some other direction with maybe some extra bass and extra highs, which is something that let's just say an ordinary consumer or most people will tend to like a little extra bass and a little extra highs. But as a rule of thumb, the S4X are very balanced. So of course you can use them in a hi-fi session. Of course you can use them in a professional session as well. They are designed to be very, very close to ideal flat. But that again is a totally different story. What is actually flat and how we could at some point in the future maybe agree on what is actually perfectly flat. Since I believe we talked about this the last time, there is no true consensus in audio industry what is ideal flat. There are many target curves to follow, and we are just somewhere in between the two most popular ones. So again, it's designed for professional use with everything that comes along, or let me say, with everything that is a part of the Ollo experience or our total offer, right? So the serviceability, real fast shipping, all these things, and also our community, which is very much alive, right? When you become our endorser, you have access to all the other endorsers and they work together, they talk to each other, they help each other out. So this is something that, hi-fi community doesn't have or doesn't really need from a company. Usually these kind of things are very much alive on hi-fi forums and stuff like that. Not so much around internal forum, if you wish. Like inside RME or inside whatever. So yeah, they can be used for sure in hi-fi scenario and in professional scenario, but they were designed together with the full offer of Ollo Audio to be more like for professional use.
You mentioned curves. You said that you're in the middle of two standards. What made you decide the tuning for your headphone, and what references did you have to guide you?
Well, again, it comes down to gathering feedback from users and endorsers and ambassadors and so on. And based on that, we are trying to design a curve that will suit as many people as possible. That's the promise, basically, and we're constantly moving that around, right? So at some point, we thought it would be great to have a little less bass, right? To get even closer to, for example, the HD650 or something like that. But then there's quite a lot of modern producers, and they don't really work in rock and roll genres anymore. They're more like heavy bass producing music, like hip hop and stuff like that. And they like M50s, for example. So we had to decide, how to get somewhere in between these two extremes, and that was our initial goal. Just to fix the problem of the S4s, which was, as mentioned before, the low mids, for example, but at the same time, not to go beyond what is considered a good headphone for a modern user. And we just landed somewhere in between. But on a technical side, if there's a listener who appreciates that part, we are between the IEC 6318-1, which is a standard used by by Graz, for example, as the manufacturer of testing equipment, and is actually one of those standards that most of the engineering companies can agree upon. And on the other side, we have the lately very popular Harman target curves, which are slightly boosted or elevated bass frequencies below 80, 60 hertz. They have quite a strong boost, and that boost is also present by Sonarworks. So if you know the company Sonarworks, they do equalization or correction, right? And they do not really publish their target curve anywhere, so you don't really know what target curve you're getting. But we did some research, and we did some individual measurements. So we basically sent our gear to them. They measured it, and we then reverse engineered what they did on our gear, and we can see that they are basically using a Harman target curve, or something that is very, very close to that. So we are a little bit shy of Harman and a little bit hot compared to IEC numbers.
Well, I'm looking at your website, and at the very bottom of your homepage, you have our beliefs section, and I'm going to quote this for the people who haven't read it. I'm going to ask you a question after I quote it, and here's what the webpage says. We strive to change how audio professionals experience audio equipment, and in doing so, inspire them to push beyond what is considered standard in their respective audio fields. That statement is a pretty bold statement. You're basically challenging the industry and the way that professionals and just common audiophiles experience their gear. So what is it? What do you mean by this statement?
Yeah, it's a statement we are working on as we go on, and refining it a little bit. But basically, what we are trying to say is that when you step into Ollo world, sometimes we refer to it as Ollo land, it means that you're very much being taken care of. So customer service is extremely high. We do everything we can to keep our customers happy, but not just happy. There's numerous stories where, well, actually, even more now that our engineers are working from home and they are very much relying on our headphones every day. What it says is when you experience our product or service as a whole, when you experience Ollo, it's totally different than in comparison to basically almost any other headphone company. Because if your headphones break, you can give us a call, and we're going to immediately send you replacement parts or a new headphone and take your back, the broken one back. So you will probably have 1, 2, maybe 3 days downtime in your studio, which is something almost unheard of. And on top of that, we're offering 5 years of warranty, which is again something that no one else, I think, offers at this time. So this is what we're trying to do by this mission statement, right? So experience, audio product in a totally different way, and at the same time, we try to, push you, so our users, to do the same in their respective fields, right? So we're trying to push really hard what a headphone company is and should be and should do, and how a headphone company should, service and respect, basically, their or our customers. And we want to push our customers to do the same. In doing so, hopefully, the audio industry will slowly, get better, get healthier. Because right now there's a lot of, people doing really hard jobs and getting paid very, very little or nothing. which is it just kind of devalues the whole industry and all the skills and time and effort that we all have to put into this to have a consumer in a supermarket listening through crappy speakers some kind of song and maybe feel a little better about the day. So this is the message we try to get across, but of course in a few words on a web page it's very hard to do so.
So it's my understanding that you guys are working on a closed back version of the S4X. Is that right?
Yes, we are working on it.
And do you know when that might be released?
We are aiming at early next year, so in a few months, I think. But there are some things that are not completely in our control. So we do need some certification happening. There are things that we don't really control in a timeline, and those can affect when the actual release date will be. But I'm hoping it's going to be early next year.
Do you expect the closed back version to sound similar to or the same or different from the open back S4X?
Well, it's gonna be different, that's for sure. I think it might actually measure even better than the S4X. So on the science part, it might have a bit flatter sound, or let's just call it a bit more boring. But they will definitely be designed for people that maybe work in a room with other people, or if you're working from home with family being around, kids being around, or late at night. The closed back version is something that you absolutely need, and even more so if you're a vocalist trying to record something and so forth. So yeah, they are coming out. They will be very much similar. We're doing everything we can in research to make it possible to upgrade to those. So again, from the old models to the new one, and maybe we'll even achieve. I'm not promising this yet, but maybe we will somehow achieve a chance to cross-grade from S4X to S4R 2021. That's something that we are working very hard, right now in these weeks and the coming weeks, and hopefully we'll have it all ready for certification by the end of the year. So that means that early next year, it can go out, can be released.
So there are some companies that are promoting portable reference quality or mixing or mastering headphones. You have Audeze with the LCD1, you have Austrian Audio with their 2 headphones. There's obviously V-Moda with the M200, and then there's Audio-Technica with the ATH M40 and 50X and all that. Do you see your company going into that area as well at any point, where you take your headphones, you make them foldable, you make them smaller? Do you foresee that happening?
Maybe, I'm not sure about this. What I can say is that right now we are not looking at these options. We are still portable, right? You can still take them with you, but we are not looking at minimizing this footprint of a headphone. They're not primarily designed for traveling. They're designed to be in a studio. They're designed to be in a home studio, home environment. But still, they are small. Every headphone is kind of small at the end of the day, so you can't take them anywhere you like. And many of our endorsers, if you would check our Instagram and so on, you would see they take them across the globe without any issues. So I don't think there's really a strong demand to have them even smaller or foldable or stuff like that.
as I'm looking at your website and I'm looking at the graph that you have with the comparisons of all the various headphones, I would like to know the best way you can sell your product. Okay, I think this is helpful for those who are curious. Why should people buy the S4X over all the other products that you've got measured on your website? The K712, the 1440, LCD1, all that stuff. Those are hype products. They get plenty of reviews by many people. So why should people switch from a company that's established for a long time, could be in the United States, and certainly they have footprints in Europe, for your company that has two headphones and doesn't have the lengthy history as, say, Audio-Technica or Shure or AKG? So why should people buy your S4X and not another headphone?
Well, yeah, sure. The way I see this this market is that there are many really good companies out there, but in reality, I think, well, not just think, I kind of know, and let's just call it. Well, yeah, I know how the market works, how manufacturing process works, and all this, and how prices are calculated, how distribution networks make money. And in reality, when you put, let's say, 10 euros towards, or dollars toward any of these companies, there's a very small part of that money actually reaching the companies. Everything else is kind of lost in the air, if you will. So that's one major difference with Ollo Audio. We very much sell directly to consumer. We do have some distribution at reasonable pricing for both parties, and that gives us, that gives us flexibility to do many things. For example, we release updates very quickly. We can do new models and release them in a matter of months. So these things gives us the edge, the flexibility, and again, it creates this environment, as I call it before, the Ollo land, right, where you can experience not just the audio and the product itself, but the audio industry or the headphone companies in industry in a different way. So that's one of the reasons, I think. But if you want to, if you want to come down to a word or two, I would say that it's there's no such thing as a rationale when it comes to buying a headphone or buying a car or whatever. It's more or less based on emotions and your beliefs and values. And if your values are similar to our values, then you're probably gonna pick our headphone over a big corporation, which is usually a lot different than we are. So what I'm saying is we are a small company, and if you want to support smaller companies doing crazy things with the resources we have, then yeah, I mean, then you buy our things. If you are a type of consumer, or your values are more aligned with corporate visions, but very much steady, a company that's been there for 80 years is probably going to be there for another 10. The main question from my side is what you actually get for the money that you're paying, right? So as you mentioned, Audeze before, or Focal and stuff like that, these are kind of pricey items, right? $2,000 for a headphone is a lot of money. And you got to ask yourself how much of that money is actually in the headphone that you have on your head. And there's going to be a very, very big difference between Ollo and, Focal or whatever, or other big company. And Austrian Audio is basically doing amazing job as well. So I think they're again a company to look after, and I think that the industry is kind of changing a little bit. There's more and more new companies coming to the market, and I think that consumers are starting to, or users are starting to realize that a big name, a big company doesn't really mean a good product. It just maybe means a good brand, a good symbol, status symbol, if you wish. Um, it's kind of like Mercedes, I think. Right? If you buy a Mercedes for 100 grand, it's obviously going to drive good, but does it drive better than a Kia? Yeah, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, right? So it's, again, it always comes down to what's your reference point, right? Why would somebody buy Ollo over some other company? If you don't have a reference point, then we are just talking about emotions and values and beliefs. And if we want to talk about, some rationale or, science behind it, the best way to go is, using measurements and stuff like that. So that's basically my answer. I guess it might be all over the place, but yeah, that's how I see these things.
So one thing you said, it causes me to pause, and it's this. You mentioned that the nature of your company, the philosophy of your company allows you to modify, change, introduce new versions of headphones, and to go where the market is essentially leading you, what the users want, the consumers want. But would you agree that that might cause some people to hesitate to invest in your product? Because if they buy the S4X today, and 6 months from now or a year from now, you move on and you add something else, and the S4X is no longer supported, I think to some people that causes them to think, well, I feel as if I'm being strung along, where I buy the S4X for $400 today, and a year from now there's a new headphone that's supposed to be better than the S4X from the same company, and then I have to buy that one, or I have to upgrade to that one. And they then take a look at some competing companies, say Bear Dynamic with the DT770, 880, 990, which have been around for decades. Or they look at Audeze that keeps selling, they make minor changes here and there with their older headphones, but they keep fairly close to their original sound signature. What do you do? How do you answer those concerns? If somebody says, I like their philosophy, but I'm scared of buying their headphone, Ollo's headphone, because I don't know if they're going to change something a year from now, and they're going to leave me back in.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the process, right? And that's part of the Ollo promise. We always try to do better, and when we have something better, we feel it's our duty to let it out, to force the market to move on, force the industry to get better. That's the whole idea. That's what we will always try to do. So trying, or again, the corporate world will tend to milk the cow as much as possible, right? So when you have a DT770, it's been there, I don't know, for 30 years, I think, something. Of course, it's very, very extremely cheap to make those for them. They have all the machinery, all the things in place for years, and they can optimize everything. So it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of reviews around, a lot of people are using them. So whenever they release something new, they have to fight the market in telling them, well, this is better, try it, right? Because there are so many people satisfied with what they currently have. For a big company to move to a new product is usually very, very expensive. For us, it's a lot easier because that's our ground. This is where we're standing at. Just creating new and better things always. And once we do that, try really hard to offer an upgrade, cross-grade options, service kits, and everything to build them yourself if you really want to. Right? So that's a very different approach to designing a product and releasing it. Of course, there will be people that will not like that very much, but hey, those kind of people should buy and will be happier buying some other product from some other company. But the ones that are trying very hard to move on, and it comes back to the mission statement we talked about earlier, right? We want to do better. We want to, make new experience and really change how you experience our products and audio industry in general. But we want you to do the same. We would like to inspire you to do the same. And this is my answer. So don't like it, go ahead, buy something else. But you have to realize at the same time there are new products coming out all the time, not just in headphones, in all industries, right? So there's a new iPhone coming out, there's a new coming out, a new model. So does it make the previous model bad? If I drive a Volkswagen, that is 10 years old, is it a bad car? It still does the job, right? Of course, there's a new car available. Will it go faster? Maybe. Will it be safer? Probably. Yeah, but that's the process. That's the world we live in. The question would be basically, we should actually ask these big companies, why are they truly sticking with all those and all technologies when they have much more resources than smaller companies do, and they could drive the audio industry better and faster, right? It's the same as why would if there's a new Volkswagen coming out, right? Why are they making that? Why? It doesn't make sense. They could still sell the same car. The only reason that they do that is because there are safety regulations that are getting higher, and because there's competition, right? In design, in safety, in fuel economy, and so on. In the headphone industry, that does not happen very much. It's a lot less present because there's less really strong players. And all of us, all the little companies, right? We can do a lot of these things, and we can pressure the market, and then hopefully the market can pressure the big guys. So I'm not talking about Sennheiser, Biodynamic, Audio-Technica, and so on, as if they are our competitors, because they are our competitors. But in reality, they have the power that we don't have, which is actually make a change to actually move the technology down the road. For example, Sennheiser, in their yearly reports, you can actually see that they have about 800 million euros of revenue. In dollars, that would be $1 billion of revenue per year. And 73 million is used in their research and development alone. And if you really look at what do they actually release in a year, how many products, how many updates, it starts to wonder, what did you spend 73 million for? So this is the question. This is kind of what the little guys, I think, are trying to do, is push the market, push the industry forward, so that those guys can spend those 70 million in maybe a little different way, maybe a better way, than in just optimizing for the old models that they are trying to milk all the way. But again, this is just an opinion and my thoughts. As always, I hope that your community will appreciate this.
Well, I think that your message does come across rather clearly with the way that you've set up your company and the customer support that you offer. But if I were to synthesize what you just said, just to help you out just a little bit, I think
Yeah.
I think the best way to calm nerves, people who might be afraid of buying your headphone, knowing full well that you have every intention of keep improving as quickly as possible to get better products out as soon as possible, is to say that you do have an upgrade path, right? So just as with the S4X, people want to upgrade to the S4X driver, they can send in the S4 and get an upgrade for a significant discount and still get like that 5-year warranty. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you think it's fair to say to people, yes, we do want to keep improving, but you don't have to be left behind. You can come with us, right? So they don't have to put down, for example, LCD1 today is $400. When Odyssey releases the LCD1 Mark II, it'll be another $400, and there won't be an opportunity, unlikely, for people to upgrade, right? And that's not what you're doing.
No. Now we are really driving very hard in research and development department to to release products that are upgradable. Obviously, this is not going to be possible going on forever. At some point, we will probably change, a basic structure of a headphone, something like that, but will not be upgradable. But the promise is there, at least one upgrade for every model, I think will be available. That's the bare minimum. Yeah, so I think you summed it up pretty well. So yeah, thanks for that. English is not my native language, so sometimes I struggle with words and getting the message across. Yeah, so I think you're on point. Yeah.
Now, looking at your products, you've got two headphones, the open back and the closed back. And last year you had an amplifier and you had this vibrating seat cushion. But those two things, the amplifier and the seat cushion, aren't on your website anymore. Are those two things gone now?
They are in development. So what happened is that we sold out all the previous models, the previous stock, and we decided not to spend money in restocking the old model, but rather to spend that money in researching for the new one. So again, we don't have a release date yet, but it's going to be in 2021. What I can say is that it will be a one rack unit, so a standard design, so you can use it in the studio. It will have some interesting features. For example, we will introduce crossfit feature, which is something that many people are familiar with. So some people tend to like that, and will help them with mixing decisions. So it's there. And we will also introduce another output. So one output is going to be for the S4X model for our headphones. And the other output is going to be at 300 ohms, right? So you can drive maybe some other headphone that you like in the studio with higher impedance. For example, I don't know, Audio-Technica R70, I think it's 470 ohms. So those will have, a separate output for that. And basically that's all that I can, say at this time, because these features are going to be there. We know they are going to be there. There's a ton of others that are still in research, and I'm not sure how they'll turn out. But if all goes well, I think kind of mid 2021, we'll be able to release pre-orders for the new Play to Me system. Yeah.
It might be a little too early for you to say, but what type of feedback are you getting about the S4X, good and bad?
Good and bad. Well, we get a lot, and I mean really a lot, multiple emails per day, 5 to 10, from customers saying that we are really making a difference in this lockdown period. when they have to work from home, separated from colleagues and so on, maybe not even in a studio. So that kind of, keeps our hearts warm. The negatives or the bad stuff that we do hear sometimes in the same emails is still the headband is still a little bit of an issue. So it rings a lot less, but there's still some ringing present, and we will continue to try and solve that even further. We do have some ideas. As we started this conversation, I mentioned that everything we do is always a balancing act between what can be done and what can be done at reasonable pricing, and what can be done in a way to be possible to upgrade from the previous model to the new one. So there's a lot of things we have to consider before we release any update. I went off my way. So the best still resonating headbands a little bit. There are some reports on the cable issues, that it has like too much microphonics there, which I tend to agree. It's rated cable, so it's not really smooth. And if it rubs against your shirt or a cable or something like that, this sound is very much transmitted to the head, and that would kind of be it. There are some people that have, of course, and they read for two reasons. One would be the earpads are still a little small, so some people with bigger ears might not enjoy S4X too much, and some are returning them. Some engineers are returning them as if they're a little bit too bright for them, which I guess is a matter of taste. That would sum it up.
Okay. Well, Rock, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and letting us record this. Before we go, do you have anything you want to say to my viewers about your company, your products, anything you want to let us know that we haven't already covered?
Well, not much really. The only thing, or the first thing that comes to mind is a big thank you, because the first time we did that, we had a lot of interest from your community, and we sold quite a few headphones. And many of the people in your community are reaching out again and again for Facebook and Instagram and so on. We get emails regularly saying, "Oh, I've enjoyed the interview on the No Themes review, and I really like what you're doing," and back and forth. So yeah, basically, what I would finish with is saying thank you for your help and learning about Ollo, what we do, what we believe, what we stand for, and how we see the audio industry going forward.
But it's been, like I said, it's been my pleasure, and I'm always happy to help out worthy companies, and I think your company is a really worthy one. The things that you guys are doing is, I agree with you, is fairly unique. The customer support that you have, the ethics that you have for making better products, not because you want more money, but because products can get better, can be better. I think that's a breath of fresh air, where other companies, they'll wait years sometimes to release what they call as an upgraded headphone, but charge you full price for it while still selling the older headphone. You know, it's kind of like a bait and switch operation. Whereas your company is, you know, you are honest about what your goals are. You are free to admit that changes need to be made and how changes are going to be made. And you're not afraid of saying, look, we may have not been perfect in the last product, but this one is getting closer to what we want and what you want. And you're not afraid of saying that product is in the past. We're not going to keep selling something that we don't believe in anymore is our best effort. And I feel as if I think a lot of people will accept that as not only a better way to buy gear, because you are never thinking, well, if I get the older version, how much better is the newer version? Am I getting my money's worth? That's not a factor anymore. So I do appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and I really do appreciate all the effort and research and development that you put into your products and the passion that you have. So I think that everything that you guys are doing is going to be beneficial to the community one way or another.
That's the idea.
Well, Rock, thank you so much again, and I hope that we can continue talking in the future. Whenever you release your closed back version, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to have another conversation with you about it and about any other products that you have coming down the pipe.
We have a lot coming. We have a lot.
Well, good. I'm excited about that.
I can't share it right now. Maybe next time.
Okay.